United States had begun that same kind of bombing that Brits in the United States tried to do against Germany. Knock out factories, make them so they can't fight anymore. They had a new plane called the B-29. This too was a $2 billion program to build a bomber that could fly higher than any other bomber and carry more bombs. It could fly 30,000 feet to 35,000 feet because the cabins were pressurized, which was a brand new thing. They thought it would fly over Soviet air defenses, and their bombs, therefore, could destroy, knock out Japanese industry. They're flying from new bases in Guam, Tinian, and Saipan. But it didn't work at all. Some Japanese fighters could get that high, and that surprised them. And they started knocking down B-29s. The accuracy was horrible. They couldn't hit anything that high. And when they were flying from east to west, every once in a while on this path, they would hit 120 to 150 mile per hour headwind. And they're ran out of fuel. And so on this path, it didn't work at all. They're bombing here, they could hit these, but they aborted almost a third of their missions because they ran out of gas before they ever got there. So it was a disastrous failure, and they made a big deal about this program to take the war to the Japanese, hoping the bombing would cause Japan to surrender before an invasion. They did not want to invade Japan. Hey, what did they discover? Here. What goes around the world? What wind goes around the world? They didn't have any idea. Have you heard of the jet stream? They didn't know about the jet stream. And when the jet stream was just right, they would hit it and it would almost stop the planes dead. Ironically, the Japanese knew about the jet stream. They had known about it in research in the 1930s, and they used the jet stream to try to attack the United States with balloons. They would launch a balloon into the jet stream, a balloon that looked like this, carried little incendiary bombs. And that winter, at the end of 44 into 45, they launched thousands of these balloons into the jet stream in the winter that would kind of cross over and they'd hold. They would start a fire in the forests here, and that would somehow slow down the US war effort. Never even came close to working. There's been 320 of those thousands discovered, so most of them probably just ended up in the ocean, but there still might be a few out. Look how many were found in Montana. They're all over. The furthest east was Michigan. So I just thought interesting, they tried to come back. It's kind of ingenious. That is one of them. It's a paper with varnish on it. So they decided to resort to firebombing. This is 3 weeks after Dresden. Curtis LeMay, who was one of the heroes of the American bombing effort in Germany, went over to take command of the American bombers in the Pacific, and he had to make it work. He heard about Dresden and decided to adopt it. That's him earlier in the war. Instead of flying at 30,000 feet, they would take this bomber down to 12,000 feet and fill it full of napalm and white phosphorus bombs. Now, it's flying that low, it's vulnerable to air defense, so bomb at night, so they couldn't be hit. They're harder to hit. And they can't hit anything at night, so just flatten civilian areas. And LeMay knew that Tokyo, many of the buildings in Tokyo, because the weather is so mild, just a frame. Then the walls are wax paper. Thick wax paper. Can you imagine what wax paper would do in a fire escape? The night of March 9th and 10th, almost 500 B-29 bombers with this new tactic flew to Tokyo. Tokyo is the size of New York City, a massive city. And they destroyed it. Tokyo, that's your name. Tokyo was destroyed. That's the remnants of Tokyo. This is the biggest firestorm ever created. And that's from an American B-29 flying overwards. This was totally unprepared. The Japanese were totally unprepared. And remember what happens in their shutdown. Tens of thousands would be asphyxiated. The next day, they were finding bodies, heaps of bodies, people burnt alive. The number of civilians was unprecedented. Look at those two pictures of Tokyo. And people see these pictures, and I see this picture being used for Hiroshima. No, it's Tokyo. The 9th and 10th. Oh, I don't have that picture. Okay. The 9th and 10th, that's Tokyo. Let's think of another picture. One night, 120,000 civilians. One night. And what happened to LeMay? He got a 4-star and a medal. And they started firebombing him. So as fast as they could firebomb, their biggest problem was that they would keep running out of firebombs. So they bomb, and then pull back. Now the Japanese would start evacuating cities. There would never be the bloodshed quite like this, but tens of thousands of people died every week for the rest of the war. They bombed every Japanese city of any size at all. So this map shows a Japanese city, and then it shows a comparable size American city, and the percent destroyed. I don't mean just like damaged. I mean gone. So Tokyo, the size of New York City, 40% gone. And that means tens of thousands of people were killed and millions of refugees. We lost everything. And for example, we have Nagoya, 40%. Osaka, Nagoya, the size of Los Angeles. Osaka, 35%, the size of Chicago. Kobe, 55%. Here is one to give you an idea of the size of the towns. Tokiyami, 48.3%, the size of Butte. So we're talking small towns, big towns, devastating, week after week, bombing, killing thousands of civilians. It's mind-boggling. Toyama, where they made fighter planes, 99% of the city destroyed. Nagasaki, almost 40% destroyed. One city, not hit at all. Hiroshima. On purpose. Every place else bombed. Actually, LeMay was upset about this. He wanted to bomb Hiroshima. They bombed everything. Now, this did not force Japan to surrender, but you combine this with the submarine, the most successful submarine blockade in history. Not the Germans, not even close. It's US submarines called the Silent Service, and they cut off Japan by supplies. By July of 1945, Japan had less than 3 months of food and less than 6 months, 3 months of oil, 6 months of food left. Now, the United States at that time knew they were about done. We didn't know that it was that dire, but we knew they were out of food. The whole thing was to get resources. Japan wanted to bring resources from China, oil from the Dutch East Indies, and American submarines right here sunk ship after ship after ship. To where there's almost no Japanese merchant fleet left, the freighters. It was so successful, it's hard to put into terms. And this is all unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking without warning. All around here. That shows them sinking a Japanese aircraft carrier. No. It's amazing what just a few submarines can do. Just a few of them. And so by December 45, Japan is completely and utterly defeated. Their navy is basically gone. US carriers, 2 different times, went up and down the Japanese home island, just bombing at will by July. Here they are, exactly one of the last remaining Japanese battleships. They're just doomed. Their air force pretty much gone. They still have a couple million troops in Japan and maybe millions of militia, and they would have fought hard, but they are an utterly defeated army. Japan began to send peace builders out. And they sent them, ironically, to the Soviet Union because they didn't know the Soviets were pledged to attack. And their number one condition, honorable peace. Well, let us keep the emperor. Now, Stalin reluctantly, because he wanted some stuff. He wanted parts of China, maybe Japan, islands. US ignored this. No, we demand unconditional surrender. Even though they're taking maybe a little bit more. But Japan ignored the Potsdam Declaration, partially because to the Japanese, ignoring meant send us another one. But to the Americans, I guess they might be fighting. So they're defeated, we know it. We're desperate to end the war without an invasion. And the Soviets are coming. So that's Tokyo on the top. That's the destruction of the dome. It's impossible to imagine. And don't forget this was going on. So, to the United States, unconditional surrender. And part of the logic was Japan's a beast. Look what they did to POWs. I mentioned the baton death bomb, kamikazes. They would fight until they literally had to be burned alive or exploded. And this was intensely racist. Iwo Jima, Okinawa showed the intensity of their fighting. If you want to say that the United States felt they had the bomb, these are key reasons. They won't quit. Kamikazes. How many do you have to kill to get them to quit? We don't want to invade. The invasion of the southernmost island of the Japanese home islands, APUSH, Truman was told there would be over 31,000 casualties. To me, that actually seems low. Killed or wounded. A bloodbath. Now, after the war, Truman would change 31,000 to a nice round million. Why? To justify dropping the atomic bomb. So if you ever see or read anyone saying that, they're trying to justify dropping the atomic bomb because after the war, people begin to realize what the United States has just done. And the US is the only one to do it. The Manhattan Project cost $2 billion. Imagine if they would have built a bomb that might have ended the war and the US didn't use it. We wasted $2 billion for nothing. What if thousands of American soldiers were killed and we had a bomb that might have ended the war? There's a real push. We got to use the thing. Whatever we get, we got to use it. Or you wasted the money. Oh, by the way, would Stalin respect you if you didn't use the bomb against the Japanese? If you want Stalin to respect you, and you're not afraid to use the bomb on civilians with the war over, pretty tough, right? Or psychotic, one of the two. But, and then why not bomb civilians? This is one thing that people don't talk about when they talk about the atomic bomb after the fact. We've been killing thousands. I showed you Tokyo. What's different between Tokyo and Hiroshima when they dropped the atomic bomb? Now, we hopefully can see the difference. But in 1945, we're already killing tens of thousands. What's the difference? What is the difference? Well, the difference is huge. 500 planes to do that to Tokyo. One plane to do that to Hiroshima. Now, just imagine those same 500 planes who bombed Tokyo, and each of them had an atomic bomb. You start seeing the end of the world. That's the difference. But they didn't see it that way. Now, Truman was told the bomb worked. He never made any order to use the bomb. He never checked. He even checked a box. He just was told, and he's like, good. And then let the Army Air Force decide when they wanted to use it. So a lot of people believe, and Truman after the fact would say, I made the big call. I did. No, he didn't. He made no decision. Just the assumption was we're going to use it. And they used it. He could have stopped it, obviously. But now today, technically, the president is the only one who can issue that order. That's what we say. But even then, that's not 100% guaranteed. So, what about the Soviets? They said, we're coming in August 15th. And remember, the US had a fear of communists. Remember bomb throwing Americans. We already had a Red Scare. And Stalin was a brutal dictator. I've told you about the purges. What else? The Red Army was awesome. Could the United States stop them if Germany couldn't? That's a real fear. And they took Eastern Europe. Where are they going to stop? Are they going to take all of Asia too now? At Yalta, they promised Eastern Europe and didn't deliver. That means we just got to assume the Soviets will lie about whatever they do in Asia. Now, don't forget, the US lied about reparations. And are they going to want occupation zones of Japan? Let's put it this way. They're going to demand them. Then what? We don't know what's going to come out of the occupation zones. We do now. And lastly, Truman would say over and over again, we gotta get the Soviets to do what we want. They gotta understand our power. We gotta get them to play ball. Meaning, do what we want. I'm not going to be Stalin's puppet. Of course, that means he wasn't Stalin. Be their puppet, which of course he would never allow for. The hatred between these two is a little bit awesome. There's Atlee. So, on August 6th, 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. It exploded a few thousand feet above the surface because it would be maximum blast effect. The ground wouldn't absorb it. Hiroshima is flat, so the explosion, the shock wave can go. But let's be clear, the big killer is the fire. And the firestorm. That's the killer. That's the killer of nuclear war. Everyone talks about the radiation, because radiation is scary. It's fire. Here's the crew of the B-29. Major Paul Tibbets was commander. His mother was Enola Gay, so he named the plane after Enola Gay. And this is the little boy bomb. Basically, it was a piece of uranium-235 in a howitzer. It's a gun. And they shot it into another piece. That's literally what the bomb did. Critical mass explosions. 15 kilotons. That is the mushroom cloud from the tail of the B-29 as it flew off. And it destroyed Hiroshima. 3/4 of the buildings in Hiroshima were gone. Gone. Over 70,000 people died. And because of burns and also radiation, another 20,000 or so would die. We're not 100% sure because it's hard to say exactly. And you can see the horrific burns on the clothes of the top. The burns were the big one. And it was shocking. The Japanese did not realize the effect of this bomb for the Japanese back in Tokyo for 2 days. It took a couple days for the news to get back. Because there's just, imagine basically a city just disappeared. Went off the grid. Now wait. So, I want to get one more thing. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. What are they bringing out Wednesday? I will type it in, but I'm going to give you the question tomorrow. And then when you come in, you can start right when the bell rings. You'll have the documents. Did I say tomorrow? Wednesday. You'll have the documents. Write it on Wednesday. I'll talk a little bit more about it, talk about the beginning of the Cold War tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.